Hello and welcome to the last part of our video tutorial. In this episode we will discuss a few specialities, both in movement and in fighting, that we didn't have the opportunity to show before. As the last step of the status phase of the Roman player, both sides have now redrawn their hand. So they have a full set of cards. The Roman player 8 cards and the German player 6 cards. And now it is time to start the turn of the German player. It is clear from our last turn that the original strategy of the German player will not work. The missile barrage from the Roman player will very soon weaken, if not destroy, the center of the German player and thus give free access both to the camp and the objective marker. So now it is time for a change of plans. The German player decides to use his good troops in the center to make a breakthrough and to attack the Romans in the center, where at the moment they are not very strong. The legionaries are in difficult terrain and thus are vulnerable to an attack, and the German player has heroes in his optimates, so they will only be useful in attack, not in defense. In order to prepare for this attack, in his event phase, the German player plays Good Omens. He can remove the disruptions from one of his units, and he chooses the unit that was attacked by the artillery and thus has 2 disruptions. The next phase of the turn sequence is the rally phase. And now we have 2 units that still have disruptions. Well, apart from the light units on the left, which also have disruptions, but probably they won't be worth the effort. The German player can now play cards for his 2 units. In order to use cards to rally units, you have to look at the white flags. Each flag can remove 1 disruption from a unit. However, you can use 1 card only for 1 unit. So the German player plays this card for 1 flag and removes 1 disruption. And this card now is not discarded but removed from the game. He hasn't another card with just 1 white flag, so he has the difficult decision whether to overpay the rally or just to leave it. In this case he decides to leave it. In the shooting phase, the light units will fire upon the Roman light units. They are all situated in difficult terrain. They can shoot because they are not more than 1 BW apart. The shooting is obstructed, however, so the target units will get a +1 modifier. In order to hit them, the German player has to play cards with at least 2 laurels on it. He does so. We have 4 and 3. Both will cause disruptions. The card with the highest laurel, the 4, will be removed from play, and the other will simply be discarded. The target units now receive their disruptions, and this will conclude the shooting phase. And we are now in the movement phase. It is now time to move forward the optimates. However, now a catastrophe happens. One of the optimates breaks ranks, moves forward, interpenetrates another unit, causing disruption, and seeing that it is alone in its attack, it stops and turns around. A situation like this, epic military blunder, often happened in history, but it is hard to model in our games. Aurelian uses a system of interrupts. The German player announces his movement phase, and as soon as he announces this, the Roman player says, well, I have an interrupt for that. And he shows the Confusio card. Confusio, so confusion in Latin, means that the Roman player can decide for one of the German units that he will move in any legal way. As you can see, this is an interrupt for the movement phase, and it also has a little trash can. So after the Roman player has played this card, it will be removed from the game. This is quite costly because it is a 6 laurel card, or you could have used it for rallying 3 disruptions. Quite valuable card, however, this interrupt is worth it. And you can see why. The Roman player decides to move this Optimates unit. He just could wheel and walk forward, but as I already described in a little narrative, he decides that this unit should interpenetrate the unit to the left of it and then turn around. This is a legal move because it is not more than 1 BW, and the movement that I've just shown you is called an adjustment. The unit moves 1 BW and then it can turn around or wheel in any legal way. For this, however, it receives a disruption. In addition, the unit that has been interpenetrated also receives a disruption. So both units have received a disruption and they are now in a very unfavorable way for the next movement. By the way, the barricade is now removed because that unit has moved. As you can see, interrupts are very suited to model the fog of war or just military blunders. They may sometimes seem unjust, but I think the history is full of generals that felt treated unjustly by the fate or their troops or anything at all. They are just situations that you can't control, and they add a strong narrative to your battles. And this is where Aurelian really shines. You will see that playing interrupts can be a lot of fun. Of course, considerably less so if you're on the receiving end. It's like I always say, wargamers love the fog of war as long as it only concerns the opponent. Well, but it's not just the fun that I really like about the interrupts. It is the possibility to model situations, the great blunders of military history. But there's also a sort of fairness in it because both sides have interrupts. So now the situation looks rather bleak for the German who has just broken his battle line and opposed his back of a valuable unit to the Roman player. But if the Roman player can really exploit this opportunity, will depend on whether the German player has a suitable interrupt or not. So the game is far from over. For his movement, the German player now plays a 6 laurel card and discards it. He uses this to move with 1 march the light troops into action. Then he can't move the Optimates unit that already has been moved, and he also can't move this one because it is obstructed and would cause further damage. However, he can use the other Optimates unit, and he uses it to move 1 BW forward, being in difficult terrain as it is, but the move at least removes the unit from the difficult terrain. It also removes the barricade, which is only with the unit as long as it doesn't move. The units in the back all constitute a force because they are warbands or massed units, so units of the same type, and they are in the same type of terrain, and they are not more than 1 BW apart. So no matter where they are moving, they can move using only 1 march. And so we will first wheel this warband. The other 2 units here are wheeled a little bit, and with 2 BWs brought to reinforce the left flank, which was part of the original plan. We still have 3 marches left, and we will use them first to bring these light troops into position for harassing the enemy. They have a movement rate of up to 2 BWs in difficult terrain. They will go exactly to the border of it, so in the next turn they can shoot out. Another march sees this warband here wheeling and moving forward 1 BW in order to reinforce the center. We only have 1 march left, and this we're going to use for a cavalry attack here on the right flank. So let's go for it. We are now wheeling our cavalry a little bit, and we are announcing a charge. A charge is a straightforward movement, and it will hit the front of the light cavalry. With our next unit, we will do the same. For the combat that is going to follow now, it is important to notice that cavalry is not fighting uphill. The definition for fighting uphill is that you must have 2 complete edges on the hill, which is the case. However, one of these edges must be the edge on which you are attacked, which is not the case, because the front edge of this unit is not on the hill. So we are not fighting uphill here, and the second cavalry also is partly off the hill, so there's no uphill fighting here too. For the fight that is to follow, the German player has 1 very good card left in his hand. It is a 6 laurel card, and he will play it here. And another card is drawn because he hasn't got enough cards in his hand. The Roman player chooses 2 cards from his hand and places the cards next to the units. Now we will just forego the other fight on the left between the light units, which is not so interesting, and now see the conclusion of this fight. What we have here are 2 light cavalry units fighting with an elan of 2, so the fight will start with a factor of 2 on both sides. To this, the German player adds his 6 laurels to a total of 8, and is rather sure that the Roman player can top this. However, the Roman player has placed his special Sacred Fire card, which is one of the special cards he gained in the setup process with a total of 8. So he actually has a 10, a very rare moment in the fight. So his score of 10 to 8 makes the German cavalry retreat and receive 2 disruptions, while the Roman cavalry will receive 1 disruption. As you will remember, you always have to remove the card with the highest laurels, so it is probably not wise to spend this card here in this rather unimportant combat. However, I wanted to show you how this special card can work and just turn around any combat or situation. Now let's see what the second combat brings. Here the German player had to draw a card, and oh no, it is 1 laurel. And the Roman player had the opportunity to choose his card, and it is 4. So as the factors are 2 against 2, we have 3 against 6. The German cavalry will receive 3 disruptions. The cavalry has 2 swords and 3 damage, so it is broken. Now let's have a look at the unit card. As you can see, there is a white square, meaning that 1 card has to be removed when the unit is broken. So, in addition to the card with the highest laurels, which in this case is a 6, the German player now has to remove this unit and remove another card. Since he does not have any cards in his hand, he has to draw a card from his deck and remove it. At the end of his turn, he will remove another card. Now let's leave our battle in the woods, well, a situation rather like the Hartshorn battle, and sum up the game with some thoughts that I wanted to share with you before ending this tutorial. We are now at the end of our walkthrough video. In the first part I was talking about preparation and army selection. In the second about setting up the battle. In the third we've experienced the turn sequence and explained shooting, moving and fighting. This was discussed with more examples in the fourth part, where we also had a look at rally, playing interrupts and some other special situations in the gameplay. I hope that I was able to give you an insight into the game and also that I was able to awaken your interest in this great game. In a nutshell, for me there are 4 central aspects that really make the game special. First, the focus on the period. Instead of the usual Moses to Cortez approach, the focus on a relatively short period of time really gives flavor to the game and is, in my opinion, much more historically accurate than the one-size-has-to-fit-all approach of some other games. Second, the adjuncts. After you've chosen and bought your army, it will receive a personality by the addition of heroes, priests, experts or traitors. They really add character and fun and unpredictability. Third, stamina. I've never before encountered a system that is so suited to mirror the increasing fatigue and loss of stamina of an army. After several rounds of fighting, your options will be limited and fighting results will decrease in quality. In most other games, the chances of rolling high is unchanged from the beginning when the army is freshly deployed to the end when it is anxious, tired and demoralized. Not so in Aurelian. Here you will experience the strain that's put on your troops by the gradual loss of your good cards. Fourth, stratagems and interrupts. The cards also allow for the use of stratagems and your opponent to undermine them. You can make plans, but they won't succeed all the time. Strategy, ruses and tragedy are all living within these cards, and with them really no 2 games will be alike, and each will tell a little history and tale of its own. So go on and buy the game at the Honor website. If you do, I strongly hope that I'll be able to persuade Sam to apply this great concept to other periods in history as well. I'm daydreaming about the Crusades, the Punic Wars, or the Viking battles of Alfred the Great. All can be possible with your support. Talking about support. Like all the Honor games, Sam does a great job supporting Aurelian on his Honor forum. So if you have any question, just post them there. Now, I wish you happy gaming and all the best. And if you have the time, just drop by my blog and tell me what you think about the videos. See you there.